You will all notice that our business meeting is blissfully short, but there is a fair amount of content, this being the very first meeting of the Society. I'd like to begin by simply sharing my feeling that it's been an extraordinary few days that I think testifies to something not just about our society but to our species. I mean, everyone here is here because they're curious, and they're here because they've decided to come because they're interested, not to make money or anything else. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful time to be with you all. I'd like the three people who have made this all most possible for us to come forward. Lenora is hard at work. Lenora, could you set your task down, please, for a moment and come up with Kathy and Jackie? What became of Kathy?
She's playing the xylophone outside.
She's bringing them all back in.
We're going to see, that's the way Kathy is. She always does the hard work. I'm going to bring her in as soon as she finishes ringing the xylophone to remind us all of how much this all has depended on her. While we're waiting for her to come back in, I'd like to thank the other people who've done so much hard work on behalf of this meeting, and in particular, the program committee. Charlie Nunn, where are you? Stand up, please. The chair of our program committee, and Cynthia Beall is the other member of our program committee. And here comes Kathy, as requested. So these three people have made this meeting possible. People who've asked me for at least 10 years, could you please help us organize a meeting for those interested in evolution medicine? And I've said it would be a great idea. We don't have the staff and the resources to do it. These three people, as a part of the Center for Evolution Medicine here, have made it entirely possible. What do you think about the job they did for us? Kathy is the assistant director of the center, Lenora is the events manager, and Jackie does all kinds of things to help us. One more quick round of applause, and then we'll get back to work for us. Thank you so much. So our order of proceeding here, to keep things on time like all the rest, I'm going to give a brief report as president, then there's going to be a treasurer's report, and then reports from our major committee members about future tasks and opportunities for the society. I want you all to know how this came about. It came about because Steve Stearns began negotiating with Oxford Press to create a journal. In the process of that, he and a bunch of us actually recommended members of an editorial board. Quite a large editorial board was created, and the journal got going. It was certainly crucial at that point, we all felt, for a group to own the journal outright, separate from any publisher, and therefore we created a foundation. And then there was an election amongst members of that board, and the three people here, myself, Cynthia, and Peter Gluckman, were privileged to have the opportunity to get things going on behalf of the foundation. Ever since then, we've been wondering, so are we just going to be having this foundation do the journal or other things? And again, as I mentioned before, it looked very possible a year ago to finally have a society meeting. And at that point, I asked members of the board, what should we do about this? They all said, yes, please have a society. Please have a meeting of a society. I asked the board again when we had our very first board meeting a couple of days ago to confirm, so what about this foundation and society business? That's not completely settled yet, but it's very clear that we do mostly want to be a society. It was actually, as I said in the introduction to Harvey Feinberg's comments, his idea saying, you guys have a society, it's not a foundation, make the transition. It might be a time coming because Cynthia Beall is doing too much work already as treasurer to deal with the IRS and banks to change all kinds of names on documents. I guess I'll say that this job was easy until we decided to become a society and organize the meeting. There's so much to do now, it's a bit overwhelming. At our board meeting on Wednesday night, everyone decided that we did want to invite people to become members, in particular founding members. And then we had a brief discussion, which we will all be continuing outside of this room, about what it means in these times to have a new society. We are in the midst of a major transition, as most of you know, if you're involved in scientific societies. It used to be that a society had a journal, and the publisher published it, and libraries bought it, and publishers got some of the profits, and societies got the rest of the profits, and everybody benefited from universities being trapped into having to buy publications. It's very clear now that no journal that is not open access can thrive. Libraries do not buy new journals, and the amount of revenue that you can get from asking authors to pay is small. As a result, it was my responsibility to negotiate a contract with OUP, and they were very cooperative. They really want this to succeed. I negotiated quite low rates, which might have been senseless in retrospect. You'll hear in a minute more about that. But in terms of things to do, it's really up to all of us to make the society work. And my message to you is that this is not the same kind of society as the old ones where you pay your dues mainly to get a discount on the journal. That's not how it works anymore. I think from now on, any group that wants to really move forward with an area of science, create networks for people collaborating together, and to move science forward, has to simply decide they're going to do it as members who want to cooperate to make things happen. So that's where we're at, and I hope many of you will want to join. You have in front of you a membership form, which gives a brief description. Anyone who fills this out and pays their dues will be founding members of our society. It's also perfectly possible for you to go online to either our conference website or to the website for our society. I'll remind you that that is at evolutionarymedicine.org. If you go there, there's a button saying Join the Society, and it has the same information as this form. There's also a button that says Donate, and that's the button where you pay your dues. Anyone who's at this meeting is eligible to be a founding member. Their dues need to be paid at least by the end of the month in order to be a founding member. Again, what do you get for your dues? You get a 25% discount on Oxford Press journals. You get a discount on future meetings, and we've guaranteed that your dues, even if you join for 1 year, will get you discounts on one meeting. And you get discounts on authors' fees when you submit an article to our flagship journal, Evolution, Medicine, and Public Health. I think the single two most important things our society is doing is, one, to maintain and make the journal grow and thrive, and you'll hear in just a moment from Andrew Reed and Steve Stearns and Claire Wallinson, who's come over from London on behalf of Oxford for this meeting, and have more meetings. Very generously, a number of people have offered to take up the work of making things happen. In particular, I'm going to start with Andrew Reed on behalf of his chairmanship of the Publications Committee. Andrew?
Thanks very much. I just want to be very quick because it's more important that Claire and Steve say things. The Publication Committee is the Society's way of interacting at the moment, principally with the journal. Our concerns are mostly tied up with supporting the journal and making it a success. That includes judging the G.C. Williams Prize, which is a $5,000 prize for the best paper published in the journal this year. I'm very much looking forward to being tortured by excellent submissions to who we give that out to. I hope we can do as well as the Omen Prize. And then we'll be doing the ongoing negotiations with the business model as it develops with OUP. Now that I'm going to hand over to one of Claire or Steve. Claire.
Thank you, Andrew. So I'm Claire Rawlinson. I'm the Head of Life Sciences at Oxford University Press. I'm really honoured to be here at this inaugural meeting of the International Society for Evolution, Medicine and Public Health, and also to have the opportunity to address you all briefly. So Oxford, or OUP, we have had a rich tradition of publishing in the field of evolutionary medicine. Right from the very outset, we've published classic titles from Paul Ewald, Steve Stearns, Wendy Trevethan, Peter Gluckman and Bob Perlman. Several of these works have incorporated contributions from the field's founding figures, notably Randy Nesse and George Williams. So such was Oxford's support for the field of evolutionary medicine. In 2013, Oxford and the Foundation decided to launch the journal Evolution, Medicine and Public Health. So the journal is an open access journal which basically enables the research to be disseminated to the widest possible audience. And I'd like to encourage you to support the development and growth of your society by signing up for table of contents alerts or article alerts and submitting your best research to the Society's flagship journal. So before I hand over to Steve, I just wanted to say that I'm going to be selling the display copies of the books that I have on the stand at the next break before I have to leave, and there's also some vouchers giving a 30% discount on the books after the conference to delegates. And finally, I'd just like to thank Randy, Kathy, Lenora and Jackie and all the organising committee for supporting and hosting me here at the conference, and congratulations on the formation of an exceptional society.
I think the first thing I have to say is that we have an excellent and transparent relationship with Oxford University Press. Communications are good. Claire and I have regular Skype conversations, and generally I feel, as editor-in-chief, very well supported. So I'd like to just show you some basic stats. We've received up to now 143 papers. We've published 64. The acceptance rate's about 50%. It takes us 2 weeks to reject a paper and 2 months to accept it. And once it's accepted, it's usually up and available actually it's up virtually the day it's accepted, but in final published PDF downloadable format, it usually takes about another week. So we're pretty fast. Our impact factor would have been 1.9 in 2014 if we were on Web of Science. We will be applying to go on Web of Science later this year. I just want everyone to know that there is a cost to applying too soon, because if you get rejected on your first application, you have to wait 3 years. So we're getting very ready. These are the kinds of manuscripts we've had. You can see that big purple block in the middle. Now, by the way, that's over the time. You see 4 blocks for the 4 years we've been publishing. That big purple block is original research. And you can see that we have a variety of categories. I encourage everyone at the meeting to go to the journal website, have a look through at the content, see if there's something that you've got in your pipeline that you think would be appropriate for the journal. We would be delighted to see submissions. I encourage them. This is, again, another way of breaking things down. I would like to call brief attention to that top arrowed category, the clinical brief. This is something that Gillian Bentley came up with at Durham and that we discussed at a Nesse working group in North Carolina. And you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got clinical briefs published already on fever, trade-offs, IBD, stuff like that. They look like the right-hand side. So this is one by Andrew and Bob Woods, who are sitting here. And it's on antibiotic resistance management. You get one column to describe the issue, one column to describe the evolutionary perspective, and one column to describe clinical implications, and you get a few references. So it's like writing the Lord's Prayer on a grain of rice or something like that. We have Claire has arranged for us to have a nice, you see what you get template for authors who are typing into this, so we know it will fit. And I encourage people to consider this. We're going to build up a big library of these. They're downloadable onto iPads, iPhones, other PDFs, PDAs, and it allows clinicians to get the evolutionary insight in real time on rounds. So I encourage you to think about that. Okay, that's our journal report. Are there any questions?
Yeah, having served a 5-year sentence as the editor of the Journal of Clinical Investigation, I have some experience in this matter. And I think everything's fantastic what's going on. I just worry about getting involved with this stupid, ridiculous impact factor, which everybody agrees is one of the worst things that has happened to science. So it's one of those things that you have no choice but to get into. But I think that if you get into it, since it's a totally manipulated thing, and everybody manipulates it, I think you should manipulate it too. Because
Ajit, I'd like to assure you that I've had in-depth discussions with the team at Oxford, which is devoted to impact manipulation. And they are on it. Other questions? By the way, for those not familiar with it, this is mostly concerned about what's in the numerator and what's in the denominator.
my question is the three-column thing that you just mentioned.
The clinical brief, yes.
The clinical brief. That I was going to ask you what it's called. So thank you very much.
Could I just make a brief comment too? As you all know, getting new journals started is very hard work, and getting them really rolling, you got to get over this threshold. And I think it behoves all of us who really believe in this field to think about this journal as a place to publish. I like Steve's notion that we should all think about those papers of ours that got rejected from Science and Nature and Cell, we should send to him. That'll make the field.
Yeah, I can forgive you if you want to submit it first to Science. Okay? After that, come to us.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Claire. And one more thing about this. If you publish in this journal, everybody who really knows about evolution and medicine will see your article. And it's open access. It's not behind any firewall. And we promote it well, both with the thanks to Oxford and through the Edmund Review and other kinds of media. This is a place to actually get your work noticed and also develop the field. Cynthia Beall has done yeoman service as treasurer. She'll tell you many of the things she's done, and then I'll tell you a few of other things that she's done.
Good afternoon. I'll start with the beginning of 2014 with the treasurer's report, at which time we had a little over $600 in our bank account. As of the 15th of this year, we had almost $10,500 in the bank. So we've had a substantial increase. That's been exciting. And the increase has largely been due to very generous contributions by Randy, by Gil Oman on behalf of the Oman Prize, and by Mrs. Williams, the widow of George Williams, who gave a very generous donation to fund the George Williams Prize. One of our major accomplishments, maybe the major accomplishment in 2014, was achieving official tax-exempt status from the IRS. That means that your donations, any ones that you choose to make, may be tax deductible. I will waffle, as I've been told by my accountant, to say you must check with your accountant first before assuming that it is tax deductible. As a result of IRS approval, I filed our first income tax report. That was nice. It was short last year. Now that we're official, is really long this year. Now, it's been great having the increase in funds. The funds are going to be virtually all exhausted by the end of these meetings. Now, on the one hand, that's very good, because that means that we raised money to do exactly what we hope to do, which is promote the field and encourage participation in really good science. It also means that we need to think more about how to get our funds back up in the future so that we can continue this work. Another accomplishment that we had, and we have had it for an entire week now. Today is the 1 week celebration of our PayPal account, which I established specifically for this meeting. And for those of you who've been to the site, you know there's a button that says donate. And we had $50 in that account yesterday, and this morning we had over 700. So thank you all very much. And a large chunk of that was in support of the George C. Williams Prize. That's all I have to report. Any questions? No. Terrific.
There is a question you should ask.
Okay.
The question people should be asking is, why does this society need our donations? And there's a very specific answer. We do need to have more meetings, and I talked, for instance, with a UCLA group who might sponsor a meeting at some time in the future, and I said, we'd like to sponsor a meeting, and you'll take the risk, and if you make a profit on the meeting, you get to keep half of it. And they said, that's a wonderful idea. Our university would never allow us to do a meeting under that circumstance. We must have a guaranteed from the society that if there's a loss on the meeting, it will be covered. We need to have $50,000 in our account to have reliable contracts with universities to have future meetings. We also need to support our Evolution Network for students and others, and our EvMed Review web resources, all of which have been from donated effort from people back at the University of Michigan who aren't that invested anymore, although we will try to get help here. We are also able to support student travel. Many students came here basically on spec because we had hoped we would eventually get donations to help support their travel. Please be generous in your donations. You'll see on the form that you have, the membership form, that we're also encouraging people to join for a lifetime and even to join for a lifetime as sponsors. I remember in 1982 in the downturn when the New England Journal sent me something saying, we're having a hard time, would you like a lifetime membership for $400? And I thought, geez, I'm still in training, I can't afford $400. It was the stupidest financial decision I ever made. It's a little late now to take full advantage of that kind of thing, but for many of you, it would be a very good deal. Thank you so much for your work, Cynthia. Mark Schwartz has agreed to take on the challenge of organizing an education outreach committee. He thought maybe it would be 6 or 8 people, and he'll tell you what happened.
Hi, everyone. This activity started maybe about 3 weeks ago when Randy asked me to step into this role. I was delighted and overwhelmed that we had 20-plus people at our first committee meeting the other night. So what I'm going to share with you is my initial synthesis of the targeted activities and projects that this group discussed. This is very... What's that? Oh, yeah? That would be easy.
Might work.
Where's my thing? This side.
I'll work on it when you talk.
Great, thanks. Go ahead. So I want you to see this list as a draft and a work in progress. We do have an initial smallish group of people that Randy has invited to join us in this committee, but I want to view this as a semi-permeable membrane. I'm hoping that there'll be a place to host our thinking about educational activities on the web, and so that others can contribute off long distance. It's okay. I speak it. Almost there. So I divided the targeted activities into short-term and longer term. Short-term meaning over the next 6 to 12 months. And the first area is involved in planning for the next year's meeting related to education. And so we'd like to add a workshop kind of format to the meeting so that there's could be skill building and learning, in particular basic biology for the clinicians, basic clinical science for the biologists, opportunities to learn from each other. Sessions devoted on education and outreach. We did some of that for this meeting. I thought that worked very well, as that should continue. The idea of, I should say that about 20 plus people came to the meeting, but since then, over the last couple of days, I've had conversations with many of you who couldn't be at the meeting, and I've really appreciated that and incorporated some of the thinking here, including this idea of case presentations with panels of biologists and clinicians thinking through patient cases or population cases together. Let's have interest groups at the meetings so we could have more connection time less formally. Structured opportunities for mentoring and career development, particularly as we try to bring in more junior members and students into our midst. How do you build a career at this interface? I'm not sure I have the answer to that, but many in this room do. We want to be able to foster and organize student clubs. We heard some about that at earlier presentations. Maybe we need a student section for the society. And the ability to launch virtual clubs, online webinars, if you will, and journal clubs for students around the world in biology and in health professions. The notion of marketing and outreach, I was sort of challenged by Harvey Feinberg's encouragement to take that on too. It occurs to me that we need a set of talking points. Some of us are more comfortable than others speaking about the value and impact of evolutionary science on health and disease, but it would serve us all if we had a short set of potent talking points that addressed this head-on as we take on sort of the political task and marketing task of this. And of course, we're all looking for sort of the slam dunk evidence, the high impact studies in evolutionary science that are directly linked to practice in science in health and disease. So that's the shorter term. That's already more than we're going to be able to do. So over the longer term, over a year, 1 or 3 years, we want to continue the work that a lot of us were doing in the Nesse working group of developing educational materials for the field. These might include instructional strategies of the sort that you see here, as well as evaluation strategies. We're developing test questions with explanations for use in courses. And Randy has talked about developing a website, evmeded.org or the like, to curate and provide access to these educational materials online. And then I think I've covered some of these issues in marketing. Interesting ideas about collaborating with libraries and museums. It's an important way to leverage our work. We have high school teachers here. How can we best leverage that interaction? The National Society of NSTA, National Society of Teachers. Okay, I didn't quite hear all that, but it's the National. Thank you, all together now. Where 10,000 high school teachers gather, what a unique opportunity. We need to write grants to support the work, and inspired by the Oman Prize and the Williams Prize, how about a prize for educational innovation? Happy to think that through with folks. So it's a start. It's a lot to try to do. We won't do all of it, and I welcome your engagement. Yep, I'm here.
If you would like to attract clinicians both in the veterinary and medical field, an absolute essential is getting continuing education credits, which they require for maintaining licenses to practice. And furthermore, it is a sine qua non if you want to have respect from those given professions. You really need to go through the formality. Do you have any plans to do that?
We now will take that under advisement for sure. Thank you.
And there are multiple ways of doing it. Ideally, the society itself would offer those credits, and that way you would not be restricted geographically. Anywhere you have the meeting, you offer the credit.
Understood.
Of secondary value would be to do it through the Arizona State University or some other affiliated group.
Thank you, Leonard.
Peter.
Just one word. It'd be very important, Mark, to be sure to maintain the international focus. I mean, it's very easy in this discussion about education to think about the American model and the American issues in creationism and so forth, which are unique in education terms. But if we want to be an international society, we need to think about the different epistemologies and the different way in which these issues emerge. They are quite different.
Thank you, and more than welcome input from people around the world in this.
I've got a small suggestion, maybe related. that I'm sure I'm not alone when talking about evolution, that the very next question that you get back from maybe talking to a clinician or talking to someone who doesn't know too much about it is, so you're interested in sterilizing the mentally ill? Or are you a eugenicist or similar? And I wonder whether a very short, 3-bullet point or similar constitution or something prominently positioned maybe in the journal, maybe on the website, to explain that we have nothing to do with social Darwinism and social Darwinism has nothing to do with us, might have value.
Thank you. I think I'll turn to the Society's board for advice on that.
Just a quick announcement for students. We're all going to be taking a picture outside those doors after this meeting. Thanks. We'll put it on the website, too.
Say that again?
We're all going to be taking a picture outside those.
Oh, picture. Got it. Excellent. A mic here and another mic to Joe.
Just a suggestion that perhaps another way to promote the societies by creating panels in friendly sister societies, like the developmental origins of health and disease meetings that happen also. It's also another international society, and so we can have an evolutionary medicine panel at the Doha. Invite them.
Our meetings report is coming up in one moment.
Oh.
Great, thank you. Joe.
Excuse me. I wanted to reiterate this gentleman's comments and underscore exactly how important that's going to be. Because there are going to be people who are going to associate the word evolution in Darwin with eugenics and other unfortunate episodes in our past. So I think it's really important that this society have a clear and unequivocal statement about what evolutionary medicine is and what it is not. And I also think that that's going to be absolutely crucial in terms of diversifying the membership in this society. Because there are going to be people who are going to assume from its current configuration that it's not interested in the topics in health that impact underserved communities. And so having clear statements about what we're doing, why we're doing it, are going to make a huge difference in terms of our ability to recruit new voices into this research enterprise.
Thank you, Joe.
We're looking forward to Joe's help this year. Does anyone know exactly how many student stipends we had for travel? Almost all of which were for minorities. We looked very hard for Hispanics and blacks to come, found relatively few despite a quite concerted effort, and we're looking for more help for that. So we are on that case and doing well. With response to the comments about not getting tangled up with other kinds of politics, very germane. It's essential we do that. I'm now going to put on my social psychologist hat for a moment and say that if you go saying, we are not whatever, people are then going to start thinking of you in association with that. We need to do the very best possible work we can demonstrating the utility of evolutionary biology for medicine and just how important this is for improving health, and keep our distance very carefully from all that other stuff, and rely on our historians. Fabio Zampieri has written a wonderful article talking about the previous failed history of attempts to bring evolution to medicine, which were quite misguided. And we will have long discussions about this, probably with some future president and board meeting, about how to deal with this. One more question, and then we'll move on to our meetings report.
Yeah, I think to get students more involved, once the Treasury Bank fills up to the top and is overflowing, career development awards may be something that would be helpful, as well as actually research awards, which would sort of extend to all of the members of society. A lot of times we hear, well, the NIH isn't interested in funding this type of research, but if the society has grants that are available for research, I think it's really going to increase awareness of the society and recognition of what it can do.
One more.
Hi, may I suggest that following what Professor Gluckman said about keeping the society international, if we could open a a task for someone to outreach outside the North American, European, Australia, New Zealand part of the world, and really dedicate efforts to find out who's doing research that is relevant to the society that might not know that there is such a society, so that we can actually increase representation of other parts and other views of the world.
Go ahead.
I'll quickly respond to that. I'm not sure if you noticed, on the EvMed review, there's a tab saying for French speakers. And we have a wing of our society that is publicizing regular events in French to that community. We really welcome other people to set up something like that for Spanish speakers and other speakers. Thank you so much, Mark.
You bet, thanks.
Okay, our final report is from Charlie Nunn. Charlie Nunn has agreed to take on the chair of the Meetings Committee.
Okay, thank you, Randy. First, let me tell you who's on this committee. We have Jillian Bentley from Durham University, Dan Blumstein and Barb Natterson-Horowitz from UCLA, Frank Rulli from Switzerland, and Detlev Ganten, and Randy Nesse as an ex officio member. And we'd welcome more members onto this committee if anyone's interested. As chair of the program committee, I've been getting a number of comments on this meeting, and that has certainly fed into our discussions about future meetings. And so I thought I'd just share with you the top three comments I've been getting. One is, and I've gotten this several times, most recently 2 hours ago, this is going to be the new go-to meeting. For a lot of people at this meeting, people are expressing the desire to have this be their home meeting. Another thing I'm hearing from many people is, I'm amazed at how many notes I'm taking. And I find that's true for me as well. Another comment is, I'm amazed at how many hands are up after every talk. There's not much silence at this meeting. And I think it'd be better if there was more time for discussion, something we need to work into future meetings. But the number one comment or question I get is, when and where is the next meeting? And I think that's a very good sign. We met yesterday and we had 3 discussion points, when, where, and how. And I first brought this up with the board about should there be a future meeting, and the answer was a crystal clear yes, there should be a future meeting. And that's also what the committee felt when we had our meeting yesterday. One of the big questions is, should we have this meeting every year or every 2 years? And we've heard very good arguments for both of those cases. But I would say the consensus is on the committee that given the excitement at this meeting, we should try to have a meeting next year and the year after, and try to have it every year and see how that goes. There is a possibility to have standalone meetings like we're having at this meeting, or to team up with another conference. And I think both models are good to consider, that we shouldn't always have a standalone meeting. I think it's valuable to think about other meetings we can partner with. I think as well, if we end up not having a real general conference like this every year, if it ends up being every other year, there's a lot of interest in having more focused, smaller workshop-style conferences in the off year. So a lot of different ideas are on the table, but the consensus is there should be something every year for the society. In terms of where, I've been surprised at how many people have raised their hands and said, we'd be willing to hold a meeting in the next year to 4 years. It varies, of course. UCLA, the folks from UCLA say that's a possibility in the next 3 to 4 years for them. Zurich, Frank Rulli, he's holding a meeting this summer, but he said a couple of years after that he'd be willing to hold another one. Australia and New Zealand there's some real possibilities there, and we're actively discussing when and where in that vast area the meeting might be held. Durham, UK, and of course the one I'm really pushing for is Duke and the Triangle, Research Triangle in North Carolina. And so, and that could be something that could happen next year, as could the Australia and New Zealand possibility for next year, 2016. We'd love to hear from anyone out there who also would be interested in hosting a meeting. We've had a few other ideas floated, but I haven't contacted everyone sitting out in the audience yet. So we may be contacting you if you don't raise your hand and contact us. And there is a place on the form that you have on the survey to volunteer your services, including potentially hosting a meeting or a smaller workshop or something like that. Now, the how question, our third question, it quickly became apparent that the key thing for how is to have more money in the bank, to have deeper pockets to draw from. As Randy said, to be able to bankroll, or not bankroll, backstop, I think is the better word, anyone who wants to take this on so that there's some insurance policy in case there is a shortfall or some cost that comes up. So we really need the financial support of the society, especially if we want to have these standalone meetings like we're having now, okay? The other how question involves deciding what the future meetings are going to look like. And again, we really need data from you. We need your feedback on how you think this meeting went. And again, I'll relay to you one of the comments that's very common that I've been hearing is, I wish there was more time for discussion. And so we're trying to come up with some creative ways to really think outside the box for ways that we can facilitate more discussion after the talks, because obviously people ran to the end of their time period, including me. And so there wasn't much time for questions. So in general, we need creative ideas. We need people who are willing to commit their time and their funds to make this possible. And the time would be people who are willing to serve on program committees to really vet the abstracts to make sure we have a high quality program as we had this year. And we need data. So please do fill out that form and give us the information we need to make good decisions moving forward with future conferences. Happy to answer any questions. Yes, one in the back.
Yeah, when medical students get matched to their residency. So just try to make sure that you're not overlapping, or some of us won't be able to come next year.
Interesting point. Good point.
Just curious about what are some of the society's meetings that you've considered partnering with?
Right. Well, ideas that have come up are medical meetings, for one, to try to really get our message out to them. The one idea for Australia 2016 would be the molecular biology and evolution meetings, to partner with them. And so we're really, we're quite open. I mean, certainly evolution meetings, American Society of Naturalists, those are the kinds of meetings I'm more familiar with. But yeah, we're certainly eager to hear ideas about that, especially those of you who are involved in other societies that could help facilitate, that kind of possibility. Yeah, Jeff?
Not having been involved at all in the formation of this meeting, what was used, and are there creative ideas for basically, interfacing with the medical community wherever the meetings are being held? Like bringing them in, communicating to them, there's a meeting, you'd be interested.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that? I don't.
Just have to decide so she can get the background.
Oh, sure. Okay. In this particular meeting, there wasn't much that was done with regard to that. Just getting the word out to, to colleagues and to people that we know make the conference. But that's a good question. What? Medical? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good point.
Yeah, one other way to partner with meetings is not just to hold the meeting, before or after the other meeting, but within the meeting itself, embed sessions. So
yes.
The Children's Oncology Group and ASCO do this, where each year at each meeting they have a joint session of mutual interest. And so certainly for the clinical oncology meetings, that's something that we could think about doing.
Yeah, that's great. Great idea. Great idea. And I think we should all be looking for those opportunities, and then discuss with the society how that might dovetail with the interests of the society.
last question and then wrap up before our flash talks.
I just wanted to publicly second that and just say that that particular option would attract an enormous attendance from medical community if we focused on that, especially right now. It's a really hot topic, thinking about oncology and evolution.
For example, the American College of Physicians has 2 meetings. We could have a session in their meetings. You want to repeat that? I just wanted to mention that also the American College of Physicians or Pri-Med, those are big, big meetings that attract a lot of primary care physicians. We could have a session within those meetings.
So thanks for all of these suggestions. Please contact the director, the chairs of each of these committees, or me with your various suggestions. And I'm so impressed at all of the outpouring of enthusiasm and good ideas that are going to keep us going very well. You do have the evaluation form on your table. Please use it. We're trying to get absolute, real information about how to make this meeting better next year. Finally, what can you do right now or in the next little while to actually put this whole field on the map? If you search evolutionary medicine now, you will not come to our society website at all. How can we fix that? Put a link on your website going to the society, evolutionarymedicine.org, and within a few days, Google will pick it up, and we will now be the place that we go to. And another thing you can do, which might be even more potent, is to tweet and use Facebook and other things to make Baba's album go viral. I think it's on the verge of that. If every kid who had a parent who was a doctor gave their parent a copy of that CD or linked to it, everything would just go ballistic. Please help by promoting that album as well. Last comment, there's so much more work to do. Steve warned us. Steve said, you don't want to start a society. It's too much work. I've done it before. Okay, I've done it before too. It's a lot of work. It's going to be worth it, but we need help. For instance, we need someone to help us write bylaws. We need someone to help us do membership and try to figure out policies and procedures and all that kind of thing. We're not going to do that in the next few months, but we would like your help and suggestions about that. Put it on your form or let me know if you're willing to help. There's lots of work for all of us to make this very successful.